Welcome to ACF Chef's Table webinar series. Thank you for joining today's webinar on ACFEF Apprenticeship powered by Rouxbe. For those unfamiliar with the American Culinary Federation, ACF, we are the leading organization for culinary professionals, offering education, certification, and a community for chefs and food service leaders. If you are not yet a member, today's webinar is a great example of the valuable resources we offer. Today, we'll be joining Rouxbe representatives, Demetra Stamis and Scott Samuel, along with ACF chefs Luke Davin and Crystal Tatum, CEC, as they introduce the new apprenticeship program developed in partnership between the American Culinary Federation Education Foundation, ACFEF, and Rouxbe Global Food Group. Feel free to ask questions using the Q&A function at any time. Let's get started by sharing where you're tuning in from in the chat. I'm Kiwi Hermans, Program Manager of Continuing Education here at ACF, and I'm excited to be here with you. Let's meet today's presenters. Demetra Stamis is the Director of Apprenticeships at Rouxbe Global Food Group. She collaborates with stakeholders to design and expand nationally registered culinary apprenticeship programs that bridge federal workforce policy and employer demand. Her strategic partnerships include national initiatives with the American Culinary Federation to broaden access to credentialed culinary training. Previously, Demetra held roles at the Culinary Institute of America, where she managed curriculum development for CIA Consulting, leading enterprise-scale education projects for Fortune 500 companies and federal agencies such as the U.S. Department of Defense. She is a member of La Dame d'Escoffier International and, of course, the American Culinary Federation. Spanning nearly 30 years, Scott Samuel's distinguished culinary career has included leadership roles in culinary innovation, instruction, operations, and program development. Currently serving as Vice President of Culinary for Rouxbe, Scott manages enterprise sales, business development, and product updates for the leading online culinary school, helping to shape the future of culinary education and professional development. Before joining the Rouxbe team, Scott served as the Director of Culinary Innovation for FoodSmart. He previously worked with the Culinary Institute of America as the Executive Chef of the college's Strategic Initiatives Group and as an instructor in the Culinary Arts degree program. Chef Luke Davin is an industry-proven culinary operator, educator, and executive consultant specializing in operational development and streamlined culinary operations. Luke's track record includes launching and managing signature, successful concepts in high-value markets. He later served on the culinary development team, overseeing the Artisanal Brewers Collective's explosive growth, developing and standardizing operations as the brand scaled from 2 to 13 restaurants in Los Angeles and Ojai, concluded this tenure as the Director of Culinary. Currently, Luke serves in asset management for the Landings Golf and Athletic Club, administering their ACFEF approved apprenticeship program. He is also the chapter president for the American Culinary Federation's Savannah Hilton Head chapter. And Chef Crystal Tatum, CEC, earned her associate's degree in culinary arts from Johnson County Community College. After graduation, she continued to refine her culinary craft in the Kansas City area, included positions at 40 Sardines Restaurant, Indian Hills Country Club, 1924 Maine, Blue Cross Blue Shield of KC, the Kauffman Foundation, the Stowers Institute, and the Nelson Atkins Museum of Art. During this time, she earned a Bachelor of Science in Management as well. What began as a part-time teaching role eventually evolved into her current position as a full-time instructor and apprenticeship coordinator for the JCCC culinary program. She is the first woman president of the ACF Greater Kansas City Chefs Chapter, a certified executive chef, as well as a practical exam evaluator. She is the chair for the ACFEF National Apprenticeship Committee and is a member of the Chaîne de Rôtisserie Gastronomical Society. At this time, I'll pass it over to our presenters. Take it away.
All right, thank you, Kiwi, for those introductions. Welcome. Demetra and I are going to kind of go over where we are with our partnership with the ACF. And then we're going to bring in Luke and Crystal to talk a little bit about how they're using the programs to date and give a little bit of feedback. But the purpose of the session is just to let you know that Rouxbe is supporting and powering the ACF Gold Standard apprenticeship programs. And how we did this, well, we've been partnered with the ACF for many years in terms of them accrediting our online courses. Rouxbe's been around for about 20 years. We've about have a million students, consumer and professional, come through our various programs. So the ACF has always been there to certify our professional programs. What's new and different about this partnership is that we have taken the time to build out the RTI, required technical instruction, for the apprenticeship programs. And we got based on the objectives from the ACF, and we got that approved by the ACF. So we started using those to supply or support our partners with RTI. And then we got to the point where we got these the apprenticeship program based on the standards, the competencies, and the hours approved by the Department of Labor. And then we moved towards the point where we're working with the ACF to power their programs and send them qualified apprentices to take the written and the practical. So just to make sure that we're clear that we're powering and supporting, we haven't created anything separate. Everything that we're doing is in line with the ACF gold standards. So today we're going to kind of review the RTI that we host on our platform and what that looks like and how it works. And we are also going to review Apprenticescope. Apprenticescope is the platform that's going to be taking the place of the ACF portal. So in the spring of 2026, in a couple months, the ACF portal will move away. So all new apprentices, and we're transitioning some apprentices off the ACF portal. So that's the gist of it. I want to make sure that when we get into this, Crystal and Luke can offer their experiences on how they're using Rouxbe in their school and in their operation. But the what is the structure of this program is here to support apprentices around the country. And Demetra coined this phrase, and I like to give her credit. We're democratizing culinary education with dual certification through the Department of Labor, where we'll get funding for the apprentices, and using those standards from the ACF as what we got certified. So I'm going to let Demetra step in and talk a little bit more about how we have built these apprenticeship programs with the ACF guidelines.
Thanks, Scott. And thanks, Kiwi. What we did was we worked with the Department of Labor and the Apprenticeship Office, and we presented the ACF National Guideline Standards, and we took the standards and we got them registered as national programs. So now we're able to sponsor ACF National Guideline Standards, which were built in the late 70s, I believe, to create a program which results in a certificate of completion from the Department of Labor. Along with that, at the end of the program, the apprentice has the ability to take and is eligible to take the written exam and the practical. I wanted just to share with you, I'm not sure if you're all familiar with the standards. Hold on.
You want to share my screen, Demetra?
Sure.
Okay, great. All right, so as we all know, or we should, apprenticeships are built up of RTI, which Rouxbe's providing. It's also built up with the standards, and we took this list here to build our standards for the various programs, and part of those standards would include what's required for the on-the-job training, and of course, what's required for the RTI. So all of these 30-hour courses have been developed with the objectives from the ACF and approved by the ACF. So this is what we're providing. Rouxbe's providing this. And then just to also touch base on the RKC, based on this RKC, we also incorporated the knowledge and the skills that are required into Apprenticescope, similar to how it was in the ACF portal. So with those three buckets, RJT, on-the-job hours, and on-the-job training, makes up the apprenticeship program. And it was the foundation, just to make sure, was coming from the ACF.
And what does that mean? Getting DOL approval and getting this translated into a national registered apprenticeship program adds a lot of advantages to the standard ACF apprenticeship, and the result is stronger recruiting, better retention, as well as access to funding and funding opportunities for your programs. We're going to move into the RTI, Scott.
Yep, just want to show that with this new partnership on the ACF page under starting an apprenticeship, this is where you're going to find a lot of the details on our strategic partnership and the different roles. So the ACF roles will continue to be supporting the apprentices, administering the examinations. Our role will be managing the apprentices through the programs. So that's kind of the partnership as we go into that. I do want to do a quick little overview of our company at large. So Rouxbe has many more things in the apprenticeship program. We have a core culinary training, plant-based training, baking and pastry in partnership with the French Pastry School. We've been around for about 20 years. We provide training globally in about 180 countries. I personally work with a lot of our partners in the US and globally. Larger operations like Elior North America, Morrison Healthcare, Compass Community Living use our core training and are slowly starting to incorporate the apprenticeships into their training. Our leadership, our CEO, Gary Apito, and Ken Rubin. Ken Rubin has been the architect of our program starting about 13 years ago, building from individual lessons into certified programs with ACF accreditation, myself and Dimitra. Just to point out our partners across the country and the world, we're with Marriott, Hyatt, Four Seasons, Accor, Fairmont as our kind of the resorts. We're in about 60 culinary schools that use our core training to support their curriculum. We're also in a lot of workforce development operations in partnership with Catalyst Kitchens. So we have food banks and such around the country using our core training. But this is the core flow of what we're talking about today. So the first step in terms of what an apprentice will do and a supervising chef will be to enroll into Rouxbe. And if you're using our RTI, you'll get all the RTI and the knowledge checks and quizzes, in addition to an overview course on how this works. And if you're in a school like Crystal's, you'll be getting the knowledge checks and quizzes because a school will support the RTI and then doing the tracking. You'll also enroll into Apprenticescope instead of the ACF portal. And this is what Dimitra will next show is how does this look and how does this flow? And the biggest step here is step 3, the earning and learning. The student or the apprentice is on the job getting paid while they're going through a culinarian for 1 year or a sous chef for 2 years and tracking those hours, in addition to tracking the over 400 competencies that the ACF requires the supervising chef to confirm that the apprentice can do. And the next step will be, we'll have that student go to the ACF to administer the written test and the practical test, and then the ACF gives certification. And I think this Venn diagram gives you kind of an idea that we're providing the technical instruction, but the on-the-job hours and the competencies are all tracked by the supervising chef. So, and then we're bringing it all together on Apprenticescope to track it, and then the certification, of course, comes through the ACF. This is just a quick snapshot of the RTI that we're talking about. So aligned with the requirements from the ACF, these are the 14 different modules within the sous chef, but it also is broken down into fundamentals or culinarian, and also the 3 pastry apprenticeship programs. So that's a quick overview of our company and how we're partnering. I do want to show you what the Rouxbe platform looks like so you get a feel for this. So when we talk about knowledge checks and quizzes, we've built a little course here to support all the knowledge that's required by the ACF. So the 10 sections that you would find on the ACF portal and the quizzes for each section are within this course. And then this is just a sample of, this is the RTI. So if you go in here, everything that I just showed you on the bullets, we've built a 30-hour course for that. And you'll find within this curriculum that we're delivering the content, but we're also having activities for the student to reply to our team to confirm, do they understand that concept? So this does not need to be done in order, but for example, if I was learning about introduction to food service, I would learn about the history and the growth of the industry and rewrote this to the objective from the ACF, then got approved. And then we also want to assess the student, and we have these activities called reflection activities. So we're going to ask the student a few questions, what local chef or culinary personality and so forth. and then it's submitted, and then our internal team on our system will grade this on a 2-point scale. So all apprentices will go through a process of submitting information, but we want these apprentices to work with a mentor to understand a little bit more. They're not going to learn it all online. They're going to have to kind of discuss this before they submit it. So as noted, there's about 130 of these that are throughout the program to support all the RTI that the Rouxbe platform is providing. And right now I'm in Chef Luke's account just to kind of give you a feel for what the apprentice would see on the dashboard. But there's also a place on the back end to track their experience within the RTI and within the knowledge checks. So when the student is done with nutrition, they're going to submit that on Apprenticescope. You'll see that next. But then Luke can confirm that they actually completed it on the back end of Rouxbe. So that's a little overview on our program, how we've integrated, how Rouxbe is supporting the ACFEF, and what the Rouxbe RTI platform looks like. I'm going to let Demetra next talk about the Apprenticescope. And we kind of wanted to lay the groundwork in the first 15 minutes of who we are, what we're doing, what platforms, 2 platforms, the Rouxbe platform and Apprenticescope, on how this program is being supported. And then we'll get into getting a little bit of feedback from Chef Luke and Chef Crystal.
Thanks, Scott. I'm going to share my screen now. This is the login page for Apprenticescope. Apprenticescope is an apprenticeship management system, which is DOL compliant for registered apprenticeship programs in the country. This is the experience of an apprentice user. They've ended the night. They're going in to log in their hours. They go to the time log tab, or down on the right-hand side, there was the log time tab. They click on the OJT, and they have the ability to put in hours corresponding to the minimum hours as required by the ACF or sous chef apprenticeship. They would submit hours. The hours show up as gray until they are approved, and then they turn blue. As far as tracking competencies and skills, they hit their progress tab, and this is where the 10 OJT categories are shown with all the skills that Scott showed you on the national guideline standards are listed here. The apprentice has the ability just to click for a simple evaluation, or if the supervising chef would like to see a photograph uploaded, they can easily go to their files and upload a photograph of the skill that the supervising chef would like to see.
So yeah, kind of a quick, just to add to this, Apprenticescope, third-party platform, manages or helps. It's a management system for apprentices across the nation, not just culinary. So we've incorporated our occupations, as we would call them, into the system to as closely replicate what was on the ACF portal over the years, but it's not going to be exactly the same. For example, the knowledge and quizzes that were on the ACF portal by the 10 different sections, Apprenticescope doesn't have a quizzing function, but Rouxbe does. So we kind of built that onto the Rouxbe side. That's one major difference that you're not going to find here. But in terms of tracking hours, tracking competencies, tracking RTI, and having a place to communicate with your supervising chef via a journal, and have your supervising chef review your images and complete it and manage you through this process, that's where Apprenticescope comes in as a kind of a more of a superior infrastructure for supporting that part of it. Thanks, Demetra.
You're welcome. At the top of every single heading to the apprentice and the supervising chef and the administrator on the account has the ability to see hours completed they did in a category as well as hours remaining. And if you click on the category head itself and you click on the hyperlink, it takes you to Rouxbe, and it takes you to the knowledge checks and quizzes. So when they're on the job and they need quick reference to certain subjects, this hyperlinks to ACF PDF pages that I'm sure you're all familiar with. And this helps the learner in the kitchen along with the RTI.
Yeah. So that's a quick overview of both platforms. I know we're about 20 minutes in. I want to get into getting some feedback from Chef Luke and Chef Crystal. The ACF has had a long legacy in apprenticeships from the late 70s. And in the older days, and I've heard this from a lot of clients, we used to use binders. So we're basically taking what has been done in binders and refining this into more of a modern infrastructure and a better way to deliver it. So Chef Luke and Crystal, this is kind of for both of you. So from your experience working with the ACF apprenticeship model and portal, where did the apprentices most often struggle? Not really with cooking, but with the process of the apprenticeship. And either one of you can reply because you've both been doing apprenticeships much longer than I have.
I think we have to state the obvious at this point. Apprenticescope is much faster, and we no longer have the wheel of death that we have to sit there and wait for Skills Gallery to load. So just by, our students are busy, they're working full time. Usually that's more than 40 hours a week, especially during the busy season. So when you're also asking them to sit there and wait on a website, they don't have the time or the patience at times for it, and so they give up. And because Apprenticescope is just more efficient, that has been ironically enough, a huge leap forward just in getting them to do the things that they have to do to graduate.
Yeah, I would say, we're kind of mirror images in that the Landings Club is an employer who's taken on the educational aspect in order to develop staff, as opposed to like a educator who is making outreach to other businesses in order to give the experience to the students. And in that regard, I mean, we are taking students who are finishing and have been very successful in culinary programs and high school culinary programs and things, but then you're hitting the ground in a new city and you are working full time, possibly for the first time in your life, probably. And among other things, it is we have a very big organization and situation down here. So even just kind of getting used to our club would be tremendous. So just giving them things on rails, especially like that all the RTI are collected in one place, that they don't have to find them each class individually, and make sure that's the right thing. And for us too, with various apprentices, and there's financial transactions and things that have to go through for each of those. Being able to do all of that in lump sum through Rouxbe has streamlined things tremendously, and it is a very different onboarding experience already with our two first apprentices starting into this, compared to the apprentices who started with us, previously and are now transitioning in this, just kind of finish up the work and just like, where was this 2 years ago when they started, kind of thing. It makes it much easier for them to comply with just doing the tracking and stuff, the self-reporting and things. Yeah.
It sounds like it really helped balancing the schedule and the work life, and
Yeah.
being able to have the flexibility of doing the online training, as opposed to going to a local community college or
Yeah.
facility that taught the courses.
So we do partner with a local culinary, with Savannah Technical College, to do the full associate's degree. We have an articulation agreement with them because both the programs are built so much off the ACF standards. So much of, if they have tracked these RTI and things through Rouxbe, we have an articulation agreement where there's a couple more electives and they can get the associate's degree from Savannah Tech as well, which is great. But it is that just we were trying to schedule classes for them to go to Savannah Tech here or there, and tracking all that. And you guys talk about it used to be for binders, and I can't see all the participants if Bob Coral is on the other side there. But so we had Bob Coral from Lancaster help us out he was our executive chef's mentor when our executive chef went through a culinary program, and Bob came down and helped us build out our program here. And it was just to see all the binders and everything he's doing is great in an educational environment. But I mean, I don't know that we would not be able to manage the same sort of organization, or even it wouldn't be feasible for us to have those students carrying a binder around to each of the 5 clubhouses around the island, kind of trying to keep track
Even
of all
the
their things that way.
educational people have abandoned the binders.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that kind of rolls me into the next concept of our RTI and the structured RTI that we've provided. So it's the general education. It's nothing special on the apprenticeship side, except that that's what's required by the ACF. And this can be done on the phone. You can do Apprenticescope on the phone, your Rouxbe on. So it doesn't necessarily mean, and I know, Crystal, your students really are not really interested in the computer aspect. It's going to all be on the phone, but this can all be on the phone. So the structured RTI and the earn and learn model has all been kind of developed to be intentionally easier for the younger generation. So Luke, what do you think about chefs sometimes? What concerns do you think chefs have around online learning?
Well,
And
I
what have
mean,
you seen that actually works and when it's done well?
I think everybody on the call knows. I mean, you can look things up online. You can watch even a lot of YouTube videos. You have to do the thing. And even if anything, for a struggle we have with the apprentices, it's not enough to cut chives once. You need to put hours and hours into the things that you're practicing. But for having our chefs, I think, you have 2 routes traditionally. Either you can go to culinary school and they push you through everything, but you kind of get it one time and they got to move on because there's a curriculum there, or you just beg somebody to give you a job and you spend lots of hours doing whatever it is they need you to do. And the menu changes seasonally, if that, and you kind of just at the mercy of the restaurant to expose you to new techniques and things. And I think our chefs, it's appreciable to see both the chefs taking on the fact that we have this curriculum for them. So we are plotting the apprentices through all of the different skills that they need to get exposed to, every one of the vegetables in the OJT targets. But it also gives the chef something to look at. Oh, like this kid hasn't done ramps. Well, we're going to do a special, let's work ramps in here. And especially when you get into things like a nage, or, different classical French techniques. Even we do or don't use brunoise or batinet a ton, but it lets the chefs know it's time to like revisit that for themselves. And dig into it and build that for the apprentices. I think it helps both sides kind of explore and keep sharp on those different skills.
Yes, definitely. And kind of just to dive into what makes this Rouxbe ACF partnership kind of necessary. We came in to solve for all RTI in one place on our platform. And you can still go to the online learning center and purchase RTI a la carte. And you can still take, school, and the students can actually take those credits from what they've done for supervisory management or what have you, and incorporate that as RTI. So we're not taking over on all RTI. We just happen to provide it all in one place, and then the tracking with the other OJT.
Yeah. With the RTI, I think you're also like indicating with the right, to have chefs to always have time to step aside and take a student under the wing and really explain flow of service in detail. And we give tons of instruction, but so much of it is on direct technique. When you start to get to those more ambiguous things, it is great for them to have the RTI to dig into and then come to the chef afterward and ask those questions. Well, what, I went over this and, I saw this for food and waste management, and how are we managing that? Or, what if we did this differently, ideas and things. So it really does help them stay on track. We schedule a lot of direct instruction and special events, but given they have all this RTI, we can actually do some very interesting things when we do get them all together. We did like ice carving and get to take them to an actual ice carving shop and do those things that are like niche experiences with that time, because the RTI covers so much else of the training very effectively.
Well, and as you know, we've always had the RTI. It's just in a different platform now. And ours is very different. Like our school is never going to use the RTI because we are that. So it kind of depends your situation, right? The beauty of moving to a new system and the beauty of all of this is it gives people options and a more functional platform to approach apprenticeship with the ACF, depending on your unique situation. That's the beauty of all of this, right?
So you've kind of described the challenges. I wanted to go into the concept of what Rouxbe is providing. In addition to Rouxbe RTI and the apprenticeship platform, Apprenticescope platform, we're also bringing on the students for membership. And the cost of the RTI will include the platform, Apprenticescope, and membership. And then we're working with Kiwi and team to make sure that all students have filled out the survey. So we are moving away from the PDFs, filling out the PDFs and making a copy and attaching it and sending it to the ACF. We're trying to streamline that into one survey to capture all the information and share that with the ACF for student membership. Just wanted to point that out. Demetria, did you want to add anything more on the dual certification? Because we have a couple different tracks when we think about this. Based on Crystal is going to be a student track. She's going to use the Apprenticescope platform and knowledge checks, but not the RTI because she's providing that. And that's one track. There would be another track that might be an employer like Morrison Healthcare or Luke with the landings. And they're going ACF track, meaning they're using the apprenticeship platform. And then Luke will be also using the Department of Labor. So Luke will be doing dual track, right, Luke? Yeah. So a little bit more from Demetria on what this concept of the DOL plus the ACF, this dual track certification, why do we have to do both?
Well, it's I'm going to piggyback on what Crystal said. It offers flexibility to the provider. If they want to just take the ACF track, they can do that. They can also add, because of the National Apprenticeship Program recognition, that they can also add a DOL program to that, which is fantastic because at the end, that certificate of completion actually is an industry recognized portable degree. It's basically, like Scott said, we call it democratizing education, culinary education, because at the end of those 2 years, and it is about the time, right? It's not about the skill, but the practice and the repetition of the skills that provides them this status that they've reached a journey worker status. They came in at entry and they leave with, for example, sous chef level industry recognition. So there's flexibility in tracks. You can just do ACF, you can do a dual track, ACF and DOL. And we haven't had just a DOL track, but that's always an option. But I think everybody on this call and everybody would want ACF certification.
Yep.
Yeah.
So kind of moving into kind of the future impact and the program evolution, what this is going to look like, how this is going to support the workforce. The people on the call, I did reach out to all chapter presidents and vice presidents just to kind of give you an introduction to Rouxbe and what we're doing. So kind of a group conversation. What excites you most about the long-term impact of this model on recruitment, retention, and career mobility in the industry?
I mean, we really started the apprenticeship to just to drive hiring. There's a tremendous amount of pressure on Savannah currently as an area and a lot of growth, and especially with like food service needs, and it just to the point that we had to start bringing in and training more people. And those apprentices are a couple of employees a year, but you also see just the way that they approach their daily work and the tasks and how serious they are taking their things has changed the texture of our entire workforce for people who still work here, but seeing these kids who are very excited about things rejuvenates even some people who've been in the club for years and years that maybe are taking their track for granted too. So that's really lovely. And I don't know if this fits in your lane too, but not to go too far into the program without saying, goes, I was saying with the DOL support that we get and from Demetria and Scott would really, between the RTI being on one clean track, but the DOL support really, it solidified what we were trying to do with the apprenticeship in a way, and the support that the Rouxbe team gives us in navigating some of that DOL stuff. But there's so many different supports and other benefits assets out there that you can take advantage of that if you're especially from the business side and you're not super familiar with some of the educational support systems and stuff for developing these hands-on technical curricula. But you guys really, our partnership with Rouxbe really catalyzed our program to the point that now I know how to reach out to the Department of Labor, and we're having grant funding come through. And as you start to get those grants come through, it doesn't just change the way that the apprentices view the program. Now it really changes the way that our executive director views the program, where it was a nice cherry on top, and now it really seems like a very vibrant pillar of our culinary program.
Yeah.
So, and I kind of, sorry, Scott.
Oh, that's great. That's great to hear. Go ahead, Crystal.
I was just saying, it's interesting that was your perspective, because from my end, it's been very student focused. And so you think about apprentices and retention. Our industry is not easy. The apprenticeship is not easy. You have to be really committed to make it through. And one of the things that's helping this is because there's a little bit more clarified track to what they have to do to complete, right? Students, as they're learning, they want to know, okay, what's step 1, what's step 2, what's step 3? By making a transition, we take what the ACF has been providing. I mean, our program just hit 50 years. This is our 50th anniversary as an apprenticeship or as a culinary school, and almost the same for apprenticeship. In that time, there's been so many evolutions that we've gone through with the ACF. This seems like a natural next step to help grow apprenticeship just from a student perspective. Because students want to know, okay, how do I get through this? And if we make it not easier, more accessible for them to get through it, we're going to have more people complete. We'll have a better workforce. We'll have a better trained workforce. There was one point where our program had 300, 400 apprentices in it. We still have quite a few, but we're not still in that heyday. And if we keep continuing to make our industry accessible, we're never going to make it easier. Like, that's just not going to happen. Food Network and Food TV did a lot for us in advertising. But if we make entry into training accessible through programs like the ACF apprenticeship and partnering with Rouxbe, then it becomes a more viable track for more students. And that's ultimately what we need. We need the next generation to be trained.
Yep. Well said. Thank you for your input. Back to the Department of Labor dual track concept. This is kind of a big thing because what we got approved for nationally, so all 50 states now recognize this as we are the sponsor of the program and recognize it for WIOA funding. So a lot of this is like going to a company and saying, the state will pay for this. And once you incorporate it, you'll get this pipeline of states paying for this as this goes. And some of the larger partners with multiple states, just want to give credit to Demetra. She's working state by state. So now we have nationally approved, and then we go to the individual state. If it's an SAA state, which is getting into the details here, then it opens other funding from tax credits to wage reimbursement. And so far, it's like a state by state operation. But we expect within the next year to be able to say all states will give you this type of funding and go here to understand it. This is who you talk to. So that's a big thing, not necessarily for students on the Crystal side, but for employers who say, that's a high cost. Well, it's not if it's not going to be coming out of your pocket, but the state's going to fund it. And, with this whole push with a million apprentices, in the next few years, there's a big push for apprenticeships. So I wanted to kind of see if there's any comments and questions before we take any questions from the people on the call. All right. So I know Kiwi, Stephanie, we might have some questions to answer.
We have some questions for you. And some of this may be just a repeat, but maybe a nice fresh perspective for the end of the webinar. But this is for anybody. Why do you think that chefs should get involved in apprenticeship?
So simply put, you can't have an apprenticeship without a chef. I know we put forth this infrastructure to support everything, But when it comes down to it, you need a willing apprentice, but you need a supervising chef that really wants to put in the hour and be the mentor for that chef. If we want our industry to remain with skilled, to have skilled workers in our industry, chefs need to get involved. And specifically, we're here at the American Culinary Federation, and I think this is the place to reach out and have this discussion.
Thank you. What are the requirements to be a supervising chef?
So this is something that I've asked Kiwi multiple times, and we're being pointed back to the national guidelines. And you can correct me if I'm wrong at this point, but a supervising chef does not have to have an ACF certification, but they have to be ready to take a CEC in terms of the time frame and so forth. You want to clarify that, Kiwi?
We call it being certifiable. Yep. So they just
Certifiable.
need to meet some industry standards as far as being, in the industry for a certain amount of years with some of the supervision. Somebody that has that level that can then go on to kind of teach and mold. And that's all in the standards and programs. The other question we've got, will the supervising chefs be able to see requirements the same way that the apprentice sees them?
As far as apprentice scope, the supervisor has an account and has direct access and has the ability to approve skills, add hours, approve time. So yeah.
Yeah, so in terms of the user experience, I showed you Luke's Rouxbe platform. So all the courses will be on the administrator's platform, and the same thing is with Apprenticescope. All the RTI and specifically what that occupation will also be on the supervisor's desktop or dashboard for Apprenticescope, so they can see the requirements.
From our experience too, with like a bunch of chefs who, weren't looking to run an apprenticeship, but we've taken on the apprenticeship and then they become supervisors. We do rotations every 12 weeks. So going into a rotation, whenever an apprentice is first coming into a club, I'll do just a digest, give them a couple points wherever the most reasonable next steps for an apprentice are, so the chef is aware. But as you're logging their hours and you are supervising and like checking off the hours, you see where they're at on this list as the supervising chef. So then you see the next couple things on their list that is unchecked, and it's kind of impossible to be a supervising chef and not be a little bit tucked into where that apprentice is going next. It's very just like natural to how you're going through the website.
Next question. Are these credits going to be accepted by the IRS? I don't know.
Well, the tax incentives usually come through a state that has SAA approval, and I would assume so. Of course.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that.
And it's all individual. I think they're speaking to tax incentives for registered apprenticeship programs. Those usually come through like chambers of commerce, small business bureaus, business-related entities in specific states. They're specific to probably that county or that state, and it's really on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah, I know that when we were working with Maryland, which was the first state that became approved with as an SAA state, they had multiple different buckets of funding, from the WIOA, which was a given, to SAIR, $2,500 per apprentice, up to 10 apprentices, and then tax credits. And they had a kind of a certain criteria that person needed to be within that job within the first 7 months of the year. What's the cost of the program? $2,000. Okay, the tax credit will be given back to you at the end of the year. So Dimitri and I are finding this isn't just state by state, but it's county by county in terms of what sort of funding. But without doing Department of Labor and looking for funding, there's the ACF gold standards on its own. So the funding is just the next step on top of this. Thanks.
Will there be a reduced rate for bulk participants?
Yes, We definitely can do that. I mean, the rate for the sous chef at 2,000 accounts for the 14 modules, which typically are about $150 each on the Learning Center. It accounts for the student membership, which is $150, and it accounts for the Apprenticeship platform for 2 years, which we're paying the third party for that. And of course, our team will be grading all the 130 activities. But in terms of bulk purchase, yeah, definitely we're working with some of our larger partners. They want to bring on 30 or 40 or 50 apprentices. We definitely look at bulk purchases.
How will current apprentices transfer into the new system?
Well, I think that both Crystal and Luke are experts due to the fact that they've been transferring. There is no digital API connection to connect the ACF portal to Apprenticescope. So it has been a manual process. Demetra has developed basically an Excel list of all the competencies that are on the ACF portal so that it can be transferred. Crystal, maybe you want to dive in since you're about to do this.
Yeah, so it really comes down to you just have to go in and use Skills Gallery as your template. Make sure they have everything checked off that they've done so far. And then Demetra has been very helpful, and they're helping, especially larger programs like ours, get the apprentices transferred into the new system and checked off and approved. And then from there, it just becomes getting them trained in Apprenticescope and how to use it. So like we're doing help sessions for our students and moving around from there.
So I know that this has been socialized since last summer when we were at the ACF convention and the partnership was announced, but we're at the point where the ACF portal will be deprecating in April. And so I'm talking to partners who have students that are in their apprenticeship. So if you're about 80% done, let's encourage them to finish through the ACF portal so you're not transferring. But if they just started and they're 10% or 20% into the ACF portal, they're a candidate just not to use that because they won't finish it. So the criteria is, can you finish it within 2 months? Then do so. If you can't, then we're going to transfer you. So the middle ground, the 50 to 60% done, will be the one where it'll take a little bit of time. But once they've transferred, it's a one-time action for transitioning.
Yeah. And even in little parts, if they've completed OJT1, you can sign off on OJT1 on the new portal without having to go into it's the same, with just like the only changes from the old ACF portal are actually things that the ACF has changed themselves about what the OJTs are now. So if you have someone who is like 80% completed, or is it more in like that 65% completed, but they have a bunch of OJTs actually, sections completed, they've already done the exam and everything, and they've got that checked off all the way. And we even did with some of our apprentices, some of that, like, you are so close. Let's just, get this done on the old portal. And I think that's the right timeline. If you're planning on switching, is to set like a timeline. Hey, you have till here for us to clean up your old portal, get as many full sections of OJT done, because that makes things a lot easier. And then from there, Dewey just worked out a really great it's a spreadsheet. You just go through, you check off the dots that they still have done on the old portal, move them to the new portal. And even for the hours, you can kind of just report the hours in the new portal if you have to. Then it picks up and go real easy.
Luke, the people want to know what kind of tea you're drinking.
If you really want to among other things, I am a bit of a tea nerd. This is a friend's tea company. You asked for a plug. Inari tea. Inari is a Japanese fox deity. This is Tongmugan smoked bohei, which is if you're familiar with Lapsang Souchong, it's a similar smoked tea. This is processed a little more delicately than Lapsang Souchong, so it's not nearly that like leathery. It has a little bit of smoke. Otherwise, it is like a Wu Yi. So the same tea, like tea stock and processing techniques as oolong, that Wu Yi rock tea, but a little bit of smoke. It's nice. It's cold out there.
Good news that tea is one of our 2026 trends.
Yeah.
So moving in the right direction. Very good.
Nice
Back to our other questions.
Yeah.
Do you also offer pastry courses?
We do. We have,
Yes, we worked with the Department of Labor to register both pastry culinary and working pastry chef as national registered apprenticeship programs, as well as offering fundamental pastry culinary and working pastry chef is just standard ACF standalone apprenticeships.
so yes, we have all 6 programs, and then the 4 that are Department of Labor approved.
Great. Are all the classes offered a la carte?
Yes, the student, the user can enroll into Rouxbe for free. We have an overview course that kind of describes this whole process, and then they can purchase a la carte. So let's say somebody's already done 12 of their RTI. There's no reason to buy the program. All they need is 2 more RTI. They can record those 12 on Apprenticescope and then purchase a la carte.
Great. This question's for anyone that wants to answer. What are the pros versus the cons of apprenticeship versus formal training?
I think apprenticeship is formal training.
That mostly my answer
Yeah.
too. Yeah.
I mean, when you put it
I'm
down,
just
touched
reading,
on
by the
earlier,
way.
yeah.
I'm just reading.
so
I think having gone through a culinary school also, I mean, I think part of the con is just that it is the scope of it is so broad. And for me, my program was 10 months, and that is just like a fast clip of hitting every skill one time. Maybe you circle back on it for like a unit exam or something, but there is not the weight of repetition that we all know we need as chefs to really hone that skill. So you get a lot of things shown to you, and you do some of them with some repetition, but you're not getting the same sort of opportunity to really repeat those things the way that the programs like these really give you time to
And
get those
even
1,000 hours.
Sorry, even in a situation where we've got multiple years that they're going to school with us and doing apprenticeship, I tell students, who are coming in, like, why should I do this? Tell them, well, you could just go to culinary school or you could just do apprenticeship. But if you're doing both, like the ACF has kind of designed it, you're going to be so much further ahead of your peers that when the time comes for that promotion, you're going to be the person that they go to because you've had a more robust education. It is like a classroom can never teach you how to cater for 3,000 people, but your job can. That's just how it is, and you get so much more with the apprenticeship edition.
I think so. If you're in an earn and learn model, you can't afford to go to culinary school, but you pick the right job with the right supervising chef, and the competencies can be taught to you in a 2-year period while you're learning. I did an apprenticeship program when I was 19 in a French restaurant in the US, and there was no guideline. There were no, binders or checklists to go off of it. It was all training, verbal. So that was kind of the foundation of my training as a chef. But when I look back on it, it's almost as if they did have the binder, because they covered NAJ. They covered all the things that I'm seeing in these skill sets. And I'm really glad that I worked with somebody who mentored me and taught me. But there was no like, okay, let me check off your hours. Let me check off your competencies. It was a French apprenticeship based on the classical cooking.
Well, it's interesting that you bring up NAJ, because we did it this week in class because a lot of our students out in the industry aren't seeing it because people have gotten away from some of those really classical things. So again, it's part of the beauty of you're getting a lot of classical education through this program because you're going both sides.
Yeah.
All right. This question is directed mostly at Chef Crystal, but I will help you answer if you want me to. What is the process for an ACF certified chef to evaluate the student CC exam?
Oh, CC. Well, again, we'll go with Kiwi for help here, but you have to become a certified evaluator, which means you have to take a class. It's usually an 8-hour class, after which you generally go straight into your first apprentice evaluation. So you have a mentor who goes through that evaluation with you. Usually you're with a group of people, and you essentially evaluate them, but you're not recorded. Your score isn't recorded. You have to do 3. Is that right, Kiwi? Yeah. Sorry, it's been a hot minute since I did mine.
All right.
You have to do 3 apprenticeship evaluations where you go and same situation. You have a mentor 3 times. So you apprentice, and then after that, you become a full-fledged evaluator, and you have to evaluate at least once every 2 years, correct? To keep your certification or your status. And yeah, then you can start evaluating at a CC level. I mean, you can do anything once you're an evaluator.
Yeah. So, and in order to become an evaluator, you do need to, at a minimum, be a certified executive chef or a certified executive pastry chef and have taken the practical exam. There's also a way for our CCE, our culinary educators, to become evaluators. There's a few different roundabouts with that, but that is the standard for our certified chefs. Let's see. Will there be online assistance for instructors and ACFEF Accreditation Commission members?
Yeah, right now, Dimitri and I provide all training on the platform, and then we have support with our company to support any other questions. But since we've just started this in the last year, and we've got about 150 apprentices throughout the country, once we get somebody like Luke or Crystal up to speed on the platforms, that's the biggest learning curve right there. And then we support along the way for all other aspects to make sure that the supervising chefs understand, apprentices too.
Great. Well, thank you everyone for all of your questions today. Very productive. Thank you to the Rouxbe team and our ACF chefs for a very informative presentation. We appreciate you taking the time to share your important insights on apprenticeship. If you want to hear more on the same topic, please check out episode 12 of the ACF Chef's Table podcast, where Chef Crystal Tatum and I share additional thoughts on apprenticeship and how to get involved. Please be on the lookout for the post-webinar email you'll receive in the next day or so, which will include the webinar recording, the survey link to earn your CEH, upcoming webinars, and additional resources. Don't want to wait to take your CEH survey? Stick around till the end of this webinar to be directed to the survey form and complete it early. We hope you'll join us on February 11th as Chef Grant Tipton from the Polish Center of Wisconsin does a demo of Polish potato cheese pierogi. Yum. And then on March 11th, Chef Matthew Thompson will be presenting a webinar on enhanced nutrition. Visit the media tab on acfchefs.org to register for upcoming webinars. On behalf of the ACF National Office, thank you again to our presenters for bringing us this opportunity. And thank you all for joining us today. Have a great day.
Thank you so much.